Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Anna Salas, and I want to welcome you to a beta new presentation that I have developed in collaboration with work that I've done for quite a while. So if you don't already know me, and many of you may not, again, my name is Anna Salas, and if you find the information interesting, there will be a way to get in touch with me at the end, but you can find me on LinkedIn. And I will also, two things I want to share with you. One is that about 3 years ago now, I chose to no longer use air conditioning. And right now it is 84 degrees in Philadelphia. It's cooled down a little bit. We had some rain. But my fan is on, and so I want you to know that it's going to stay on, and hopefully it's not too distracting for you, but it is part of my life. The other thing you need to know about my environment is that I am a fan of natural light. I do not turn on any artificial light until it starts to get dark. And so I've had many people give me feedback about not being properly lit for video, and being my authentic self, that's not something that I'm going to change anytime soon. So we all have things that are unique and personal about us, and I've just shared two things that are unique and personal to me. What we're going to be looking at today is the second series of informational and energy dynamics that we want to spend some time with. If you're in a situation where you're deja vu dating, which I'm familiar with, I've been there, I know all about that, and you're realizing that it's hurting your life now, or it's realizing that because you didn't understand what deja vu dating was when you got into it, you may now be in a casual relationship or a committed relationship or even a marriage with someone that you connected with while you were deja vu dating and did not have all the information that you needed to have about your own energy field. So what is the energy field? If you're new to this idea that there's more to you than meets the eye, I like to share with people the context for that conversation. There are a number of things that matter to us so much that we can't see. I always like to say, we can't see oxygen. It's invisible to us. But without a relationship to oxygen that's ongoing all the time, our bodies will cease to live in this way as vibrant physical forms. This is common knowledge. But the point is that you can't see oxygen, but you take it for granted. The second thing that's usually taken for granted these days, people still view creative content, visual creative content, on bigger screens other than their phones. And sometimes that will involve the use of a remote control device. And for years, we've all been used to sitting down in front of a big screen with our remote control device in the hand, and we push a button and the big screen comes on. And we click some other buttons and the information changes. We take it for granted that that relationship exists, even though we cannot see the communication between the remote control device and the receiving device that's getting the message time to turn on. That isn't something that you can see. We can only see electricity when it's become dangerous. But when it's running through protected, organized circuits, it then can move through the air, and we can't see that, but we take it for granted. Now, having established that, I'm going to ask you to take a breath. And I have the privilege of being a kind of an engineer of things that other people who are not wired or put together the way I am genetically can't see. They can perceive it off to the side indirectly, Usually they can feel it emotionally sometimes, shifts in energy, shifts in emotional states are, that's energy that's happening when you move from one emotion to another. It's because of an energetic dynamic inside of you and outside of you. What I would like you to understand is that there are structures, just like you have a circulatory system. Some of us learned about that in school. Heart, lungs, veins, arteries. You have a lymphatic system that's very much essential to your whole capacity to have an immune system. You learn about this when you learn anatomy. I'm a fan of that kind of learning, and I've learned quite a bit of it. In fact, I chose to become a certified emergency medical technician because having the ability to see energy in and around and inside the body, it's an unusual skill, it's an unusual talent. When I began to feel the impulse to want to work alongside doctors in hospitals, bringing that skill, which they did not have, even when using X-ray and blood work, there were things that they cannot see that I could see. And so I developed those collaborations over time, and they were validated. The results of what I did using only energy, directing it, moving it around, shifting it, and teaching the patients that I was working with how they could do that also for themselves. So we do have the opportunity to learn our biological anatomy. And some of us also include taking our sexual apparatus, our gender biology, all of that's very complex information. And we can choose to learn about that as another function of our human anatomy. It's something that I recommend because we have the capacity, a man and a woman, however that's organized, to create another human being. And we need to understand that process. So that's also interesting because that is actually, for most people, unless you're not able to conceive naturally, that moment of union and the sparking of new life isn't something that we see. So I'm emphasizing how much is going on that we take for granted, that we know a little bit about, but that we cannot, most people do not ever see. If you're a physician, heart surgeon, you're going to see the internal beautiful anatomy of the body. You're going to study that. You're going to become expert at it because you need to work on the physical heart. Yeah. If you're going to be delivering babies, and maybe you're going to do that as a physician, you're going to be well-versed in the anatomy of the reproductive system, probably of women, and also somewhat in the reproductive system of men. You know what it looks like, and you know, because of your education, you know what to do. This is no different for me. I just have a different level of skill that shows up in a different way. So I combine my expertise with having to have learned anatomy and physiology to get certified as an emergency medical technician. And I bring to that all the information that I literally got for free because my now ex-husband was a medical school student, and he was studying medicine at the time. I was working on my professional skills as a shorthand court reporter. And so I attended university with him, and I sat in on his lectures, and I transcribed them for him to help him with his studies, but also to build the vocabulary, because I was one of the first people trying out computer technology for shorthand court reporting, and it served me very well. And so did that information sitting in with my husband. I didn't get paid for that at the time. It was a tremendous use of my time during the day, but I felt it as an extension of what I knew was a direction that I wanted to go in. And I did end up being able to do daily copy in medical malpractice cases. because I understood the vocabulary and I knew the connections. I did very well with that. And so when I'm talking to you today about your energy field and how it functions, having just explained what I explained to you, I hope that you will extend me a little bit of your trust and perhaps a little bit of recognition that I have some authority to speak to you about what I do speak about and what I do for my life work. Energy healer, life coach, educator, and someone who's also developed a holistic product, because all of that came together for me a few years ago in a really wonderful way. Now, having laid that groundwork, we come back to what it is that you're experiencing as someone who is deja vu dating. For me, when I was in that dynamic, my emotional body was in quite a bit of distress. And the way that I managed that wasn't always good for me or healthy. What I eventually came to learn, and what I will share with you today somewhat, is that for those of us who are born into certain family structures, family culture, family history, it is not uncommon for a child, could be an only child, but usually it's more than one child, to become a kind of a indirect caretaker of the emotional information in the family when the family is not clear in its own emotional space. When the mother is not clear emotionally, she's not done the work to activate all of her energy fields so she's a whole person, which means she'll be in partnership with a man who also has not done the work with his own energy field to be a whole person. So now you have two incomplete people trying to bring something together that has the quality of wholeness, but it can't. So the children that are born in that situation have that challenge. And we appreciate the challenge as being generational, for sure. I'm aware of the challenges that my father had growing up in his life before he met my mother. I'm aware of the challenges that my mother had in her life before she met and married my father. And then I'm really aware of the challenges that the two of them unconsciously generated in the family dynamic in which I was raised. That put me in the position energetically and emotionally of being an empath. I'm not going to go into the explanation of what an empath is. I will say that it means that you have a great deal of emotional sensitivity and you're tuning into other people's needs and emotions and concerns, and you choose to do that in a way that can make them your own. You can actually take them on energetically with the intention of wanting to help and heal. For many years, the way that I expressed that was hypochondria. I was in energetic dynamics with people, friends, family, and I would wake up one day with sudden horrible chest pain, and I was thinking I was having a heart attack, when I came to find out later in that day that someone close to me had either had a heart attack or a relative had had a heart attack. They were picking up that information because information is always moving through the air, just like the signals from the remote control. All those shows are available all the time. You're just going to pick which one you watch. So empaths are people who are sensitive, sometimes to a fault. And deja vu dating is an example of how empaths can get into deja vu dating cycles because they are sensitive and kind and compassionate to a fault. And they do not have yet healthy boundaries. We all need healthy boundaries. I grew up in a family where managing that was extremely difficult for me, and it was very confusing for a lot of reasons I'm not going to go into here. So empaths, I have a guide for the work that I do, and if you get on my list, you get it as a gift. So some of this is explained. And someone who usually, if they're not empathic, and they don't have to be, but they can still be a family dynamic where the choices that they are presented with is to always pick up the slack in that family dynamic. If the dishes didn't get washed by mom or dad, you're going to wash the dishes. If the laundry didn't get done, you're going to wash and dry and fold the laundry and possibly put it away, even though there are other people in the family who could be doing that same work. And you're going to hand them a pile of clean, folded laundry, and some of them will actually put it away. But, once you hand it to them, it's not your problem anymore. It wasn't your problem to begin with. So in the generation that I was born in, these kinds of things were the areas in which women were given a lot of license and a lot of freedom and a little bit of power. You could choose your laundry soap. You could choose which laundromat you went to. If you're lucky to have a washer and dryer in your home. I remember when my mother got that in our home, and she was so excited to have her own washer and dryer. And she got to choose which brand of washer and dryer she wanted to have in the basement, because now she was going to be doing laundry at home for the most part. Amazing. We also know that this dynamic can apply to men. It's not about gender. And so deja vu dating can happen with and for men who are also empathic. And there are many men who are empaths because of what happened in their family dynamic. It's almost like, in some families, somebody turns out to be a really great cook and they're so valued. Well, in some families, someone turns out to be a really fabulous empath, but there's no conscious conversation about it. So I'd like you to think of it in that way. And we all know that there are men who are amazing chefs, and there are women who are amazing chefs. It's not about gender. It's about love of food. And being an empath is about love of people. Okay, so you also can have men as well as women who are over givers. They are always picking up the slack. Now, who are they picking up the slack for? And that's where we really get into it with deja vu dating, because if you're always picking up the slack, who are you with who's not carrying their share of the work? This is something you want to ask about and make new decisions about, whether you're he, she, or they. And if you're the empath and you're always processing the emotional energy and content of your relationship while your person, your other, does not, and may not have a lot of respect for you when you do it, and may argue with you and may punish you because you're not only feeling what you're feeling, but you actually feel it as the truth. And you're trying to get the truth expressed. Why? Because there's tremendous creative power in it. And when the truth is expressed and it's accurate, it means you have less work to do as an empath, because everybody in the room is taking care of their emotional truth, and you don't have to do all that work for everybody else. So this is an important context for us to understand about deja vu dating. Now, today, having shared this context with you, I'm going to do a slide deck presentation of PowerPoint for you, and I'm going to go through it at a reasonable rate of speed because I also have a video that I want to share with you today. So the video will not be recorded because it already exists as a separate recording, and when you come into my program, the Deja Vu Dating Breakthrough Bootcamp, in which you get to reboot and break free of unhealthy habits, and you get to learn about how to develop and maintain strong, healthy boundaries for yourself, physical, emotional, mental, all the good stuff. So I'm going to take a break here. We're going to pause for a few minutes. And in the program, as it is designed with units of understanding and module like any other course of study, This will be a place where you have an opportunity to ask questions while we're on a break, uh, to share in ways that you feel comfortable sharing before I move on to the next part. So I'm going to stop the video here so that we have an opportunity to do that. And then I will pick it up again and start recording again when we go into the actual presentation. Okay, so give me a few minutes and thank you for being patient. And once again, I'm so glad that you're here.